Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, I want to talk about an article that was put forth a few days back with Tadej Pogačar explaining that sometimes it all goes awry. That's what we're talking about, the Tour de France in 2022 on stage 11, Col de Granon. You guys remember that stage? Man, how could we forget it? It was the showdown between Primož Roglič, Jonas Vingegaard for Visma Lease Bike, and Tadej Pogačar, all battling it out on the Col de Galibier. Geraint Thomas was in the picture for a bit, getting dropped, coming back. Visma Lease Bike, then called Jumbo-Visma, they were on the attack. Remember Christophe Laporte? He was doing that spectacular weight up there for Primož Roglič, Jonas Vingegaard, as he dragged him down between the little drop there on the Col de Galibier. And then, of course, they went 1-2 and Tadej Pogačar left and right. If you're working for NBC like I was at that time, it was Bob Roll telling you that the tactics right now were extremely difficult for Tadej Pogačar when they were the easiest tactics you could possibly have in the book, right? They were just follow Primož Roglič, follow Jonas Vingegaard. If you can't follow both of them, certainly follow Jonas Vingegaard and not Primož Roglič, because he crashed on stage 5 of the cobblestones and was already a couple minutes down on the general classification. And with the crash on the cobblestones of stage 5, you got to assume that Primož Roglič might get worse throughout the Tour de France, or you assume if one of them are going to crash between Jonas and Primož Roglič, it's probably going to be Primož Roglič, so you let him go. Tactics as easy as it comes. But I want to take you to the article that I read, because why were things going awry? Well, in there we're talking about a bunch of different things with Tadej Pogačar in terms of everyone's being treated the same on the team as Tadej Pogačar is treated like a champion, so are the rest of the guys on the team too. And then we're talking about, through that article, of how he switched trainers in there from Inigo San Millan to Javier Sola. That was going to be his next trainer that's preparing him for this 2024 season here. But then we're talking about down below how it all went awry because of calories on that 2022 Stage 11 Tour de France. It was just calories. Garrett, where did we hear that before?
I don't know. It sounds kind of familiar, though. Maybe.
Just calories. Didn't I tell you guys it was just calories? I told the guys at NBC it was just calories, and they all thought I was crazy. It's calories when you see how it finished on the stage. When you see a rider riding so fantastic as Tadej Pogačar was going up the Col de Galibier, not smart, it was knucklehead tactics that he was doing, but you see the strength that he was putting out off the Col de Galibier when he had Jonas Vingegaard holding onto his wheel for 4 kilometers all the way to the summit. There was no reason to do that because they had Wout van Aert over the top anyways. So if Tadej Pogačar had dropped Jonas, Wout van Aert, who clearly was going to wait up for Jonas Vingegaard, would have dropped back there, brought him back to Tadej Pogačar along the descent. So tactically it was a nightmare, but it was just calories. And you can tell it was just calories because of many things when I was sitting there in the booth at NBC. First off, like I said, he was fantastic going up the climb. Going down the descent, he still looked good, and he was getting attacked by a group that was like 20 plus riders, but he had no teammates in that group. And when you have no teammates, that's another problem that I'll cover later. But once you get down to the bottom and then you start the Col de Granon and your team's on the front, they're setting a nice tempo because it was, of course, Rafael's on the front and Tadej Pogačar sitting there behind his teammate. Once we see Jonas Vingegaard light him up, though, we see Tadej Pogačar's in problem. The biggest sign, though, that you know it's a bonk is that, well, Tadej Pogačar didn't finish second, guys. He finished 6th. That was a huge sign. He went good up Col de Galibier. He went good down the descent. He went bad the last 5-6 kilometers going up the Col de Granon when Jonas lit him up. Then afterwards, when we see him being interviewed, he's fine again. And that's because he's bonking so hard. But right after the stage, you can see him drinking and eating calories. Certainly drinking calories, I saw him doing. Eating calories, I'm sure he did when the cameras weren't on him. And then when the cameras did get on him, you see him and he looks good and he looks fresh again. That's how you know it's a calorie bonk. When I was talking to the guys over at NBC, like I said, Bob was calling the race as Jonas Vingegaard drops Tadej Pogačar. We all know that. We watched it live. Of course we saw that. But why did he drop it? As I'm arguing with everybody at NBC that it's just calories, Christian Vanderveld's talking about how, no, Jonas Vingegaard was epic. He had the best ride up. He set new records up there. I looked over at Christian Vanderveld. I said, Christian, Nairo Quintana was second. When was the last time we see Nairo Quintana ride second and only lose a minute to Jonas Vingegaard? Happens all the time. That's how we know Jonas's time was about standard of what Jonas can do. excellent, exceptional, first-page rider. Do not get me wrong. Jonas Vingegaard was solid, but Jonas Vingegaard was holding on for dear life going up Col de Galibier for 4 kilometers behind Tadej Pogačar. That's how we know Tadej Pogačar was stronger, and that's how I know Tadej Pogačar had a hunger flat, didn't take in the calories, and as I've said many times on Beyond the Coverage, it was couple Cokes and a couple Snickers, all of a sudden he's wearing the race leader's yellow jersey at the end of Col de Grenade. Now he had other problems within the team, and certainly I've covered that before on this stage 11 because I cover it in deep detailed dive many times. But when we're talking about now getting ready for the Giro coming up, when we look and compare the Giro to the kind of quality field that you had that year's Tour de France, well, if I remind you guys, when we go to the Col de Grenade, Nairo Quintana starting the Giro. He was at the Col de Grenade. He got second on that stage. Geraint Thomas was 4th or 5th on that stage, but in front of Tadej Pogačar for sure. And Bardet's going to the Giro too. But the only problem is you don't have Primož Roglič and Jonas Vingegaard to light up Tadej Pogačar to get him isolated and to get him where you're going down the Col de Galibier and to get him where there's 20 guys in there. He's covering moves left and right, and he forgets to think about eating. If I go back again to that article, the trainer's talking about how you got to adjust the calories with Tadej Pogačar depending on how the race is going. And that's true. I've said many times throughout the videos here on Beyond the Coverage and the Butterfly Effect that when I was racing, I'm burning about 800 calories an hour. When I'm training, I'm burning 600 calories an hour. I've done bike races at the Tour de France on a cool day when the racing wasn't that hard, where probably you're burning 500 calories those days because you're just sitting in the group, you're spinning the legs, it's a little bit colder out. The heat normally burns more calories than the cold. Certainly you need more fluids and more stuff flushing through the body when it's hotter. But certainly when you're on the attack for 81 kilometers, like we saw at Strade Bianche with Tadej Pogačar, that day is probably burning 1,000 calories an hour with the kind of energy that the Slovenian's spinning on that stage. But when we look at the Giro again, when we start looking at the competition, unless something awry happens again to Tadej Pogačar, he's going to win this year's 2024 Giro d'Italia, and he may have the pink jersey from stage 1. It's not a summit finish, but they have a solid climb near the finish, and then a little bump just before the finish. Tadej Pogačar could be in the race leader's pink jersey on stage 1. He may hold it the whole Giro d'Italia here in 2024, because if he lights everybody up the climb before the finish, we're going to start seeing second, Geraint Thomas, Bardet, Kian Utebrooks, Danny Martinez from Bora Hansgrohe, Lipovitz, his teammate who just got done having a really good Tour of Romandy. We're going to see those guys all fighting it out for second place already on stage 1 of the Giro, which means Tadej Pogačar, throughout the next stages, he may not even have to use his team much. Now, Geraint Thomas said, I could be on the team himself, not me, but Garrett said he could be on the team and Tadej Pogačar could still win. I looked over at Garrett and I said, what'd I say, Garrett?
You could have 3 of me on the team.
You could have 3 Garretts on the team, you could still win. Because what's going to happen is a lot of guys are going to start racing for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the general classification. So when breakaways start going up the road, we're going to see that other teams will start chasing because they're fighting for that podium spot. Tadej Pogačar might have 3 weeks of racing at the Giro. That's just fantastic training if he lights everybody up on stage 1. And if he doesn't take it on stage 1, well, it's a summit finish on stage 2. So he lights everybody up on stage 2, puts himself in the pink jersey, and then goes into training mode. The biggest thing Tadej Pogačar has to be careful about at this year's Giro d'Italia is, of course, the Italian roads always throw out obstacles at riders. It's technical. It could be raining and miserable like we saw a lot in last year's Giro d'Italia. So the weather could get the roads super slippery. You could have accidents and crashes. If he has a crash, all of a sudden, that's when we're going to see Tadej Pogačar's form could change. And then we see Geraint Thomas. We see Danny Martinez from Bora Hansgrohe, Lipovitz from Bora, Kian Utebrooks, Bardet. We see those riders, if they can keep the gap close on stages 1 and 2 here at the first week of the Giro. If something can happen to Tadej Pogačar, they could be racing for the general classification, because if Tadej Pogačar loses a bit of form like we saw in last year's Tour de France where he had some bad days, not bad enough to go second out of general classification. But if he had some bad moments or some bad crashes, all of a sudden his form could drop down to what we saw with Geraint Thomas last year, where he was in the pink jersey racing against Primož Roglič. And you guys are saying, well, Primož Roglič isn't Tadej Pogačar. Primož Roglič, in my book, up here on Beyond the Coverage, is every bit of as good of a rider as Tadej Pogačar, with the exception of bike handling skills. Otherwise, he has the same speed as Tadej Pogačar. He's the same time trialing abilities as Tadej Pogačar. Not back in that 2020 Tour de France when he lost on the penultimate day, but in general, as a whole, Primož Roglič has the same time trialing ability as Tadej Pogačar does, and he has the same sprint ability. So I think those two riders are the same, but Tadej Pogačar, of course, can eliminate some of the bad luck because he can handle his bike a bit better. So we saw last year at the Giro where Primož Roglič went in the Giro sick. He had some bad luck throughout the Giro, but started getting better and better. And of course, on the penultimate uphill time trial stage there at the Giro, he ended up taking the race leader's jersey back with a 42nd just destruction ride over everybody from second on back to put himself back in the race leader's pink jersey and to win the Giro d'Italia. The Slovenian is as good as the other Slovenian, there's no doubt about it. But we see from last year that if something bad happens, some little sickness comes through, bad food, flu, cold, something like that, or crashes to Tadej Pogačar, we can end up having a bit of a battle at the Giro d'Italia. But you're going to need something like that to hit Tadej Pogačar, or he's going to light everyone up, and the other teams are going to start racing for second and third on general classification. Now, I'll cover some more of the sprinters coming up in the Giro d'Italia, but for sure, they're going to be the ones that highlight this year's 2024 edition because they got at least 10 sprinters in there and they're epic names. Fabio Jakobsen's going to be there. Olaf Koy is going to be there. We're going to see Caleb Ewan there. It's a fantastic list of riders. And then when I put Tim Miller on that top list of 4 sprinters up there, we know there's going to be a battle on every one of the sprinter stages starting from stage 3 and then filtering on and off throughout this year's Giro in 2024. But I'll cover more of that, of what we got to look for in these coming days before the Giro d'Italia starts proper here on Beyond the Coverage. Right now, it's all Tadej Pogačar, and he needs to make sure, keep the calories good, stay out of trouble, stay healthy. He's going to win the Giro d'Italia, and if he can keep those 3 circumstances on his side, well, he's going to come out of the Giro d'Italia the freshest we've ever seen a rider win the Giro and come into the Tour de France getting ready to do the double. But keep in mind, guys, 1 Coke, couple Snickers, calories short, and all of a sudden you can lose just like he did at the 2022 Tour de France on stage 11, because I told you guys live that day on NBC that it was just a bonk, and now it's finally released out there to the public that we know stage 11 of the 22 Tour de France, Col de Grenade, Tadej Pogačar lost that year's Tour de France because he came up just a few calories too short. And of course, there's a lot more before that and after that, but that's the main thing. Lack of calories cost Tadej Pogačar the win. So something that small, and of course some bad luck, could change things at this year's Giro d'Italia. But right now, Tadej Pogačar is looking possible of doing the double right now in 2024, which, can you imagine if your Visma Lease bike, you just got done having that spectacular season in 2023, winning the Giro with Primož Roglič, winning the Tour de France with Jonas Vingegaard, winning the Tour of Spain with the American rider Sepp Kuss, 3 different riders having an epic season. Tadej Pogačar could come into the 2024 season and already make you forget about last year's 23 ride from Jumbo-Visma, because this year, Visma Lease bike have some bad luck with Jonas Vingegaard crashing out, of course, at the Basque Country, and whether or not if he can recover and be 100% for this year's 24 Tour de France, it's still up in the air, right? Tadej Pogačar could do the double and erase what a whole team did in 2023 and up it by winning the double here in 2024. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.